Absolutely.
All right, all right. Good morning, good afternoon, good wherever you be. I can't say wherever we're at. Good morning, good afternoon, something like that. We've been off for 2 weeks, kind of. We had a special message for you last week, but if this is your first time on this show, this is Old Guys Still Rock. I am Blair Armstrong. I'm located in typically beautiful Indian Wells, California. For us who've lived in the desert for quite a while, it is cold and dreary today. I got a little bit of Oregon out here, brother.
What's it, 65 and a little overcast or
I don't
something?
even think it's at 60 yet.
Uh,
So we're just, we're little spoiled children out here in our nice little bubble out in the Coachella Valley. In the middle today, it may show up that way. Brett still might be on the right, but on my screen, Brett Wright, who is the basically founder or co-founder of Old Guys Still Rock. Brett Wright and I have been friends with over 20 something years. Brett Wright is a business owner of multiple business from payroll companies to body shops upon some other things. And he's just starting another business with his wife, the wellness company.
yeah.
And then on my very, very right, and actually a friendship that kind of took a time out for a little bit, but I would say we've been friends since, my goodness gracious, about 89.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So Brett, Ken and I met back in Costco in college. He
Hmm.
was, when we were at the University of Oregon, he was obviously one fraternity, whatever. And that's what college kids did back in Eugene, is work at Costco while they went to school and earned some extra money. We did not have NIL money like they do now for football and other sports. So we had to work a living. And then Ken's life went one way, my life went another way, and we reconnected through a home purchase. Gosh darn, due about 2 years ago today, almost, right?
Yep.
So anyway, Ken McCumber, welcome to Old Guys Still Rock. I'm going to give you a little bit of applause right there. We usually give it to Brent to say you're a special guest. So welcome aboard, brother. Thank you for coming on here.
Thank you for having me.
We're getting a bunch of feedback from you, Blair, I think.
Are we?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll fix that here in a little bit. So I'm sorry that we're getting that. Maybe there's speakers going back and forth. So guys, today we want to talk about a couple different things. First of all, I want to ask everybody, how was Thanksgiving? Brent, we'll start with you.
Yeah, Thanksgiving was good. I call it burning a turkey. We fried a turkey out in the parking lot at our coast house and spent some time with the kids and family. And we went for a walk on the beach because, I like long walks on the beach, right? And we had bronchitis, so ironically, the cold air helped me get better. So that was great.
So Ken McCumber kind of had a special Thanksgiving this year. We'll get into a little bit. You had a grandson about a year ago, and it's first Thanksgiving. How did that go?
It was amazing, Blair. So we had collectively, my mom and dad were in from Oregon and staying with us, and my wife's family, her parents live here. So we got the whole crew together, and as you said, having baby Duke here was a real treat, man. He's getting ready to turn one, and man, he's an eater. We know he's in the right family.
Yes.
So it was great. It's fantastic.
That's awesome. Well, brother, I'm glad that you came on, as we mentioned a little bit earlier. So you had quite the year, but I want to begin our topic today, building on foundations. Each one of us over the course of life, father, some sort of foundation. It's really up to us to kind of build on it. Now,
We're really struggling to hear you, Blair.
are you really?
Yeah,
How about now?
that's a little better. It kind of goes in and out, and then we get a bunch of feedback.
Okay. Am I better now?
That's better. Yep.
Okay, just turned my mic up a little bit, so sorry, I must adjust that. So, all right, guys. But anyway, what I wanted to say is that so much your story captivated me, kind of what's been happening with you over the last year. Uh, you had a pretty good health scare about a year ago.
Some feedback on this, so I'm just going to
feedback on this, so I'm just going to kind of talk over it. Maybe we turn down a mic just a little bit. Turn down speakers from somebody. Are you guys giving feedback yet still?
It wouldn't be an episode if we didn't have a technical difficulty.
Right? So anyway.
Yeah, it sounds really stretchy.
So we're just going to talk through this.
We're just going to talk through this and we're just going to work it out.
Is your speaker up pretty loud?
Is your speaker up pretty loud? Brent?
No.
Is a speaker coming through? And I can edit all this out, so don't worry about that part. Anyway, we'll just jump back in, so I'll edit out that part. But, Ken, so you had a pretty good health scare over a while back. Then you had birth of your grandson. You also did some stuff over recently. You just decided that it's time for a career change. So my big question to you, and I'm sure Brent's going to have some questions to you, is was the health scare a catapult to you to make some changes in your life? Or was it your grandson? Or were there some other circumstances that, like, you know what, I need to make some definite changes kind of moving forward?
I would say all of the above, Blair. So, for reference for the audience, around this time last year, I had a pulmonary embolism. So that's basically when a blood clot releases from your leg and travels up into your lungs. And it was pretty... It had a big effect on me for a couple of reasons. So, obviously, a good percentage of people that get that, the first symptom that they have of that condition is dying, right? So, I'm not, I think, over dramatizing. Like, I felt very fortunate to, have kind of come out the other side of that and get to the hospital on time. And it was an interesting timeline, right? So, if I'm putting myself back this time last year, it's a Monday night, and 9 o'clock at night, I'm getting ready to settle in and start getting ready for bed, and we get this picture from my daughter, and it's a picture of my grandson. So he was born that night, and we're all excited, taking a look at the pictures, and about 6 hours later, I'm laying in bed, and I just have this awful pain in my leg, and I knew something was going on. So I got myself to the hospital, and next thing I know, I'm there for a week on blood thinners and kind of limping around, and it was a pretty, the extremes there were very extreme, right? And you don't necessarily feel it in the moment, but I think in retrospect, as I have thought through, like, what those two experiences coming together in that short period of time, it was a pretty dramatic period of my life. So I think directly your question was, is that something that catapulted you into, making some changes or thinking about things in a different way? And, I would say absolutely yes. I know you've got grandkids, and Brent, I think you've still got kids in the house. And, for me, the last couple of years, have been great in the sense that, I'm past, I think, a lot of the pressures that, maybe moms and dads feel as they're leading families. They appear in your life, and, for a lot of mom and dads, myself included, the first thing you think about is, my God, how am I going to figure out a way to pay for college? How am I going to figure out a way to put food on the table? And it kind of dramatically changes your thinking. And I think another thing happens when they're all out of the nest, and in a lot of ways you got to kind of reinvent yourself. And so for me, that's been a big part of my process over the last couple of years. Is like, okay, I'm not driving carpool anymore. I'm not going to little league games. Like, what's this going to look like? So I don't know, maybe you guys have gone through the same thing. And, I think the health scare that I had at the end of last year really motivated me to kind of think about things in a little bit different way and, make some changes. And, Yeah, it's been an awesome year. Really can't complain in any way. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, I think that two of that. Some of us are starting to go through. Maybe some of us that are watching it kind of go through that health scare, and it makes you reevaluate about what have I accomplished. I think you said something, and I think Brent's going to kind of carry on this here in a little bit. But um, when you have kids in the house, it's one evaluation. But all of a sudden now kids are kind of gone. But what's my legacy, right? Did I accomplish my legacy? Did I build my foundation the right way? Do I have my family set the right way? If something happens to me, who takes care of your wife? Who takes care? You still got kids, and they're still going to need some sort of support. And now I have this next generation of me, right through Jude, your grandson. How does that? How it's just? I think that you said something that kind of really hit home because obviously I have 6 grandkids, which we all know is are these guys going to be taken care of? Did I do everything that I needed to do? And I think that's a big question for a lot of people out there that have gone through this that maybe not know how to communicate. Is what we've always said on this show is men are like silos, and we don't typically talk about this stuff because we don't want to see that their armor is maybe dented or damaged, or maybe it's not as strong as it used to, but it's actually could become a little bit stronger. So, Brent, and I know that you just had some conversations too with your kids all the time. We actually brought this up about about 3 or 4 episodes ago when you had a conversation with Lincoln about you're not going to be on this world forever. And Lincoln is I'm going to call him a savant for so many things that he does. But that conversation really kind of laid a foundation for him as well. And if you could kind of recap that, Brent, for those who've missed that episode of what you and Lincoln had a conversation, because it's kind of, I feel that's really kind of the same thing that maybe Ken was thinking about, but you've talked about.
Yeah, so we had a conversation about how many summers you have in your life. Jesse Itzler, I went to a symposium and he was there and he talked about it. He was getting ready to turn 50 that year. He's now 53 or 54 or something like that. And he said, by national standards, I have 25 summers left, and I really like summer. And summer's fun, right? I mean, it's the best time of the year. But you only have 25 of them left. Like, what are you going to do with your life, right? And so, in talking with Lincoln and going through the process of one of my mentors, George Shepard, passed away a couple of weeks ago. Lincoln has really attached to that. And he wants to make every second count. I mean, he's 7 years old. He's 7, and he understands the value of time at 7 that I didn't understand at 37, right? And you probably just got the wake-up call about the value of time last year, if you hadn't had it before. And so I think laying that foundation in my kids about it's a tough conversation. I mean, it was very emotional for him. It's very emotional for me right now. He didn't like the fact that I wasn't going to be here. Possibly, I had 24 more summers left because I'm 51 and national average 75, right? So he found the value in time that I don't think people ever really value until they have a scare like you had. Maybe you found it earlier. I don't know. So that's what I would like to get some feedback on. And the question is, when did you start valuing time?
I think for me, it's a lesson I've learned repeatedly. There are times in my life where I feel like I've really been, very acutely aware of the time factor, and there's other times where, I'm not, and that's just part of, being human, right? But sometimes it takes something to wake you up and shake you a little bit, and hopefully you come out the other side. But it's a good reminder, and I love that analogy around summers. I mean, I've seen similar stuff around looking at a box graph of all of the days, and kind of ticking those off. But the summer analogy is great.
Well,
Yeah.
the one thing that people always try and use is like, how many days you have left, or how many, months, or how many seconds per day. And I don't think that really
Hmm.
quantifies really how short the time is. And yes, I mean, whatever, 16,000 seconds or 20,000 seconds, whatever we have every day,
Hmm.
that sounds cool, but that's a big number. Having 24 summers left, that's a wake up.
That's why people move out to the desert, dude, because you get 10 more.
Yeah, exactly.
Have dinner at 5 o'clock with the rest of us old guys. But seriously, you guys said too. This is a very interesting conversation for me because Brent and I talk about it every week. But here we got a guy that's just starting um, to build a foundation for his kids. Ken, you've built the foundation for your kids. Got a little bit of you're in your second marriage like I am, so you have kids from different realms, but you're still laying foundations for them. But now I've got this first grandson, right? I think you're the second generation of a Ken McCumber. Realistically, in the right way, well, that's what it is. How I have some stuff that I want to say too, but I look at when I look at my grandkids. Have you looked at Jude and going, here's some mistakes that I may have made with my kids? Do I lay a different foundation for Jude?
I've definitely been
Have you
thinking a
thought
lot
about
about it,
that yet?
because I think the magic recipe that you have to be a good dad, not 100% of that stuff is going to apply to being a good grandfather. And if you want to be really deliberate about establishing, a relationship with
Mm-hmm.
your grandkids, I think it does have to be deliberate, and I think you need to think through what that's going to look like. And I think for me,
Mm-hmm.
a big part of it is like just having faith in your kids, right? That they have been raised right and that they're going to be good parents. And, certainly for all of my kids, I feel that way. So, the question then becomes like, what's going to be, the tenets of, I guess the way I'm going to be, I'm going to be a part of this kid's life. And, I think, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things as a dad that I kind of discovered, and this just happened last weekend. I was hiking with my middle son down at the zoo, and we were talking about life stuff because it was like a 2-hour hike, and I don't know, we're just out in the middle of nowhere, and he was
Right.
asking me questions about like my career and what had happened. And I got the distinct feeling like he felt like everything that I had done along the way was just, I touched gold, right? I never made any mistakes. I never did anything. And it was a good conversation because, it gave me a chance to kind of give him a couple examples of where I really screwed up. And, everybody screws up, right? And, but, for him,
Mm-hmm.
I think he felt like,
Mm-hmm.
my career in particular had been, paved pretty well, and there were no bumps in the road. And, it was good to be able to kind of address that and let him know, hey, nobody's career is like that. So I think as I, think through the relationship that I want to have, with
Right.
my grandkids, it's a lot of it's, about, being real and, making sure that they, it's a relationship that's based on, just understanding one another. And I don't really, I want them to know that, I've made mistakes, and everybody does, and that's just part of the deal, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna fill this in, and Brent. I know Brent always. I always say this because Brent and I have known each other, so I feel like I know what he's gonna say. But I think what you're doing, Ken, is super important. We've talked about this a lot too on our episodes. Is that you're having conversations that you may have not had. Obviously, your son thought that your middle son was thinking like, oh, okay, everything's good, because us as men may miss that conversation before. Now, what I'm hearing you say is, man, I should have had that conversation a little bit earlier. May have gotten rid of some bumps in the road like this, but we're just like, okay, I'm gonna be a strong dad and do all these things. Now the conversations with Jude are going to be just a more deep, that peel back the onion a little bit. This is what, I've seen. This is what I've done. You know, here's what your mom has done and done some different things. So it's wisdom that's super important, that now that you can mentor in a different way, because just that one conversation you had with your middle son on this hike, really like, oh my God, I missed that. Now I have a second opportunity with my grandson, or I'm guessing you're going to have more along the way, somewhere around there. But even Jude is going to teach you something about communication. And the why that I bring this up is I've had so many aha moments on this, as you well know. And Brett and I said that this is our therapy session. Every Thursday, we want more of you to come on here and have therapy with us. But it's just like, my God, everything that we taught was pull up your big boy pants, keep on a smile in your face, and don't let anybody know what's going on to it. Everybody that's on this panel right now probably had some sort of conversation, because that was instilled to their, by our parents, which was instilled by their parents, so on and so forth. And now I feel like we're breaking this mold in a very good way, which society really needs right now. Is it's okay to have conversations. It's okay to be transparent. It's okay to be vulnerable to a certain extent, right? I mean, we still need to be men, and we need to go ahead and take care of the household and stuff like that. But there is so much that we can protect our kids, our friends, our family, guys that are going through stuff. I had some conversations last night with some guys that are going through some stuff, man. And I said, this is the reason why I want you guys on our episode, so you can go to therapy with us. So with that being said, I also want to bring in your wife. Now, you had a pretty good health scare again, which we talked about. Scott, you're in the middle of a career change. Has that changed? Let's say this, and I know this kind of, well, maybe this is how I'm looking at it from afar. I feel that you and your wife have a very, very good communication compared to, and maybe you learned a lot from, both of you have been married before and come into it. Did having separate marriages beforehand, when you came into this, change the way that you had communication with your spouse? Or was it always been the same when you had it? I know we're kind of getting deep here, but I think that's one thing, is sometimes Brent is working on that. I'm working on that. Is your communication with Mary a lot different?
Absolutely. I think if you're, I've had a couple of friends over the last 5 years or so that have, gone through divorces, and, you get the calls, right? It's that first call when, they're kind of breaking the news to you, and, your heart drops because you know what they're in for, right? I mean, it's just a long road, regardless of what the circumstances are, right? I mean, whenever, a marriage ends, it's a sad thing, and, it's something you got to work through. And, certainly one of the things that I looked at after, my first marriage failed was, what was my part, and, how did I want to get better as a person, and, what kind of things did I feel like I wanted to change in the next relationship that I had. And, I took some time out, and, I think it's an experience I would never want to go through again. But at the same time, it's really provided me a lot of growth, from a personal standpoint, to, just take stock of, what was going on, and, how I wanted to kind of manage myself moving forward. And I do think, it's dramatically different now, with Mary, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see that. Well, I'm going to share a special moment, because I love this, and I'm bummed that sometimes I don't live on campus like you guys do. But when we leave Ken and Mary, sometimes at dinner, they have karaoke night on the golf cart on the way home, man. And it's freaking awesome, because you can hear them sing to the song, man. And it's really cool. And Chrissy and I were talking about this the last time that we saw you guys do that. I'm like, damn, we need to have karaoke cart night. This is some fun stuff. But that type of stuff, man, I mean, I know it sounds funny and comical and super simple, but what type of impact is that really making on your marriage in a positive way, right? It's just like everyone letting down their guard. I'm sure that you've gone through some tough conversations as of late, Some of them really good, and some of them like, man, I don't want to do that again. But I think that's one big thing. You hit the nail. I went through a divorce super young. Took a long time for me to figure out life and kind of know that. And but what I'm saying, you took a time out. But I think one big thing is sitting down and really evaluating what was your part in the divorce. And I think for a lot of us out there that have to go through this, and yes, we see it a little bit more often. And I've had the phone calls. I'm sure Brent has had the phone calls from a couple of his buddies or girlfriends, whatever they may be, girlfriends,
Right.
But it sucks, dude, because you can feel the pain because you went through that, and it's the last thing you want anybody to do. And it's like, God, if I could change anything, I would just figure out a way for them to figure it out. But sometimes the Band-Aid is not replaceable. So, Brent, I want to go back to on the conversations you have with Mary's building foundations. So you and April, that's your first marriage with you, so having kids and stuff time, and there was a long dating period on that.
Mm-hmm.
How are you instilling to your daughter some of the foundations of a solid relationship? Because there's a lot of lessons that you learned along the way, be married or not married, but with just past relationships. Now you have this daughter who's coming up, and in a blink of an eye, she's going to be thinking boys are cute. Which I pity that guy that thinks that she's cute.
She told me the other day. She's like, next year is double digits, and not long after that, I get my car, and after that, I go to college and I start my business. And I mean, it's just boom! It just blew my mind, right? So, the one thing that I think I can relate to with this is that I didn't have to do this when I was young, so my focus was different now. It is different now versus doing it when you guys were younger. That's when you guys had your kids, and then you were just worried about scrambling. I mean, you talked about it, Ken, just surviving and producing enough money to, hopefully start a college fund and all those things. Having kids later in life is a huge blessing for me and my kids and my wife, because I have the experience, and I also have the ability to slow down the process and really dig in on some of these issues. Like Blair, talking about my daughter, 2 nights ago, we were sitting around the table, and the kids started asking about where we lived last or before the kids were born, and were we married, and how long we dated, and all of that. And so I have to be right with them about that and say, we didn't do it right. We lived together before marriage, and we had you kids before marriage. And they asked why, and I said, I was distrusting of relationships due to my previous, situation and getting a divorce and being taken to the cleaners and all those cool fun things. And it's a different conversation with a 7 and 9-year-old today versus probably it would have been when I was 25. I think.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity to share foundationally, like you said, with my daughter about what to expect and to don't tolerate the things that I did to her mother. I say to her mother, meaning, I didn't commit to her early enough. I didn't do the things I should have done. We're trying to live a biblical life now, and that's what we did wasn't biblical, and it wasn't biblical based, and it wasn't the way I would have liked to have done it. But I let my past experiences overshadow.
Brent, it's really cool though
that
I find it interesting that you're able to kind of recognize in the moment, right? Like maturity wise, I'm older, I'm wiser. I got a little money in the bank. I don't have to worry about all of that necessarily. And I have I have the power, I have the luxury to kind of slow things down a little bit and really think through how these interactions with my kids and my wife look like. I mean, that's really cool to recognize that as it's happening, and rather than just be like me and Blair,
Figure it out tomorrow. Today, this is where we're going. But I think
which was funny because I was able to watch that with Blair, right? I mean, I met him when his kids were super young.
Yeah,
And
Brett's been through a lot of life. Ken was around when Christian was born, which is great. So this is kind of very surreal for me to have both of you on here today to be such an integral part of my life over the 20 years. But now we get to share these guys' experience, and I really love this right now because, as I said earlier, is like you don't have these conversations typically when they're going out having cocktails or dinner with their wives and stuff like that. So here's a part of guys being vulnerable in a different way. Like, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. So for those of you who are watching this, I hope that this resonates with you. Women, if you're watching this, maybe show this to your husbands. It's like we're constantly learning lessons. We're constantly, as I said to you, we've been given a foundation. We're slowly building on it. Sometimes we have to take away a bad rock out of that foundation and replace it with the right rock to continue building on that. But Brent learned from his mistakes. He had a different walk for life than I did. All right. He had a different walk than Ken did. Now, again, is obviously I've had different walks. Ken's had different walks, but we all are sharing different experiences. And even though we've come from different sides of tracks or different walks and we're building different foundations, there's a common thread in there that wisdom needs to be shared. And so we not only can help each other out, but we've got a generation coming behind us. Brent with his kids, soon to be grandkids in 15, 20 years, maybe longer, but I'm just putting it on there. Ken McCumber just started this realm of being a grandfather, but your kids still need that foundation, right? Just learned that on a hike that I still need to help build his foundation. So it's a constant wisdom. And then now we have to look back. As who's helping build our foundation. So it's this constant ever flow. So don't ever think that, hey, life is done. I'm 50, 60. I may have retired early. We have some of those friends that are in that boat. Life never stops. Even if you don't have kids, life is never stopping. There's somebody that you can pour into. And so I'm loving this wisdom that you guys are sharing and sharing different experiences, going on hikes with their son. Ken, there's one thing that you shared that when you just kind of had that, oh man, this is going to be the best thing ever. When Jude kind of looked over, you were watching a football game, I think. And you want to share that experience?
I went out.
I love that story.
Jude's in Montana, and at the time I was in Seattle, so I just took a trip over there, and he's kind of at that age now, or at that time where he was just kind of starting to crawl around and be a little guy. And it's also the time where, I think if you're going to interact with him, you got to be on the floor with him, just playing with toys and all that. And anyway, so I spent the better part of 2 or 3 days with him. It was a quick weekend, just pretty much on the floor watching football. And at the end of the weekend, it was pretty cool. He crawled over and gave me a big hug, and it was just a wonderful feeling, for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Connection without words, right? So that's really cool. Brent, before we started recording on this here, you and I had a conversation regarding having a conversation with your wife yesterday. And again, this is another kind of building a foundation. But share that conversation that we had with the rest of us, because I think this is a big thing, especially right now with there's so much tension around of us. I don't care if you're retired. I don't care if you have a business. I don't care if you're just starting our relationship. Just everyone's on level 10 tension. But we know it. We feel it. We talk about it all the time. Just little things kind of set us off more than normal. But you had a conversation, I think, that sometimes we can learn a lot from, that you had with April. And if you could kind of share that with us, I think that's going to really resonate with a lot of people that are watching this right now, are going to listen to this later.
Yeah, so I had read some article yesterday about how how men, um, it's your job to build your wife up, uh, build your family up, to make sure that they understand that they can trust and believe in you. And there are many levels to that. There's the spiritual, there's the physical, there's the mental, there is the integrity part of it, the morality part of it, right? And so those are all different layers of trust and understanding. The one thing that it didn't touch on though is the vulnerability of all those things, between men and women. And so, our conversation earlier, Blair, was about, it's one thing that a woman, when she decides that she's going to be physical with you, there's a layer of trust there. When she decides that she's going to cook for you and build a life for you and give you kids, those are all layers of trust. But you have to, no different than everything in life, you have to experience and also grow every aspect of that trust. And it really hit me upside the head yesterday. My wife shared a vision with me about 8 or 9 months ago that she wanted to put this wellness center together. And that was a very vulnerable place for her. So she must have felt comfortable with me from a physical, from a spiritual, from an emotional, from an integrity, from a morality standpoint. And all of those pieces were fitting together. And she felt comfortable enough to share her vision and her dream with me. And that is a hugely vulnerable position for men and women, because you could easily have poo-pooed that, right? You could easily have said, that's a great thing. Maybe we'll do that one of these days, right? Or not completely attached to that vision. And immediately I said, if we're going to do this, let's start vision casting and praying about it today. And so we took the kids and helped them and held them accountable to vision casting with us. And we went to the space and we walked through the space like we were in business already. And did the kids, and the kids got in it and wanted to do a kids area and a kids workout program and help with all those things. And so last night I went home and I said, could we talk? And she said, okay, yeah. Usually that means some good, some bad, maybe. Okay. So I said, I don't know where this is going and I don't know how to talk through this. So I'm just going to start. And so I went through that whole spiel that I just did with her. And I said, it is an honor and a pleasure to have you trust and believe in me to the point that you felt comfortable sharing your dream with me, that I would help you to execute that. I said, I know I told you that in the beginning, that if you ride with me, then I will make all your dreams come true. And that's an easy thing to say, right? It's different to actually act on it. But I wanted her to know that I recognized that she trusted me and believed in me enough that she could share her dream with me and know that I was going to help execute on that for her. And it's coming to fruition. I mean, if you see the posts, you see all the stuff. I mean, I'm going all in, kids. I mean, it's it's a lot of dough and a lot of effort and a lot of energy. I mean, I'm transforming a 6,000 square foot building, an industrial building, into a warm and cozy and functioning wellness center and gym. And it's our whole family that's bought into it. The kids come and paint and do all that stuff, but I wanted them to hear that conversation. So after we had it, she was okay with me repeating it to the kids, and the kids got very emotional about it. And they understand, I think, more than a lot of people give them credit for. And maybe your son can, maybe didn't quite understand early on in life what you were going through, but I'd be willing to bet that he saw a lot of things that maybe
Sure.
you
Yeah.
didn't see him see.
Most definitely. And gosh, that's a great story, Brent. Talk about like just a layer of trust with your wife and, what you guys have been able to do in terms of getting that thing open. That's a really cool deal.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
I'm glad you shared that, and I kind of want to carry this over to, and I not hash this out, but because everyone's heard Brett and I talk for the last 30 weeks, but Ken, I wanted to go back to, going back to that conversation you had with your middle son on the hike. And I'm guessing there were other conversations too. And because I've had them with my son when we went through a divorce, but it's at a different time. Was it a lot to go back to there? Because obviously there is a uneasiness when kids have their mom and dad split up. And some of us that go through that, not all of us, some of us are good at doing it, some of us are not, but some of us don't have conversations with them because we just feel that the kids don't need to know why. And that could be a big, very problem because now they feel like something's been ripped away from them. There's a void in their hearts of like, who are they supposed to side with or not side with? I'm Maybe you didn't, maybe you did, and nothing against you if you didn't. But did you have those conversations with your kids? Like, listen, this is happening. I don't know how old the kids were at the time, so
Second grade,
that's here
fourth
nor
grade, and
there.
sixth grade, and I can remember that
How
conversation
were those
so
conversations?
vividly in
Okay,
my mind. And yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I think as we went into it, their mom and I, for as much as we disagreed on, and for as much as the situation was as it was, we both put our kids at the top of
right,
the list, right? And it was really important for us to be in a place where we could be both on the same side of the soccer field. My wife coined that term, but it's something I thought of at the same time. Like, we have some friends that, I mean, literally, the ex and they can't be at the kids' soccer game on the same sideline. They can't stand each other. There's so much like angst and anger, and it's just awful.
hmm,
It's awful for all the people around them and for the kids. And we were really deliberate about deciding that that was not going to be something that our kids had to face. And then the other thing that I kind of worked through was like there's a lot of ups and downs as you're working through post divorce. But at the end of the day, I always kind of looked at my situation and I said to myself, I don't want to make any decisions that I'm really going to regret later. And I don't want to look back on, the way that I conducted myself or the way that I talked to my kids or interacted with them where, I would regret something I did. And believe me, I've got, friends where that wasn't the case, right? I mean, there was certainly, plenty of stuff I think on their side where, I had a good reference point to, be able to make that a basis for myself and the way I was going to handle things. And, it wasn't always perfect, but, at the end of the day, I mean, I think that's, for me, that's kind of how I got through it. And, nothing's perfect, but, looking back on it, I think we had those conversations for sure. Um, I wouldn't change a
yeah,
thing about, how we manage stuff.
right. Yeah, and I was super young when I got divorced, and obviously I didn't manage it very well. And two things that I will say that just I am blessed for the man that my ex-wife married, and Brian. He is definitely godsend. Um, and one thing is because she dated a couple people that weren't the best, and obviously I've dated a lot of people who weren't the best either, and which causes some yucky conversations. But she kind of roundabout way is forced to like, hey, I want you, why don't you come out and go skiing with the boys on the boat with Brian and everything, like, which is kind of awkward. Here's this, this guy's going to go ahead and kind of be this father figure of your son and everything. And one thing that always resonates with me and stuck out with me, the kids got out of the truck. I know exactly, we were at Dexter Lake. So Brian, if you're watching this, I still remember this. But we're at Dexter Lake, and all the kids got out of the car, and he goes, dude, I know you've been through a lot with kind of, the relationship and doing different things. Is like, as obviously a love of Stacy and all these different things like this. But one thing I want to say to you is I'm here to not only support Stacy, but I'm here to support you. I'm never going to be Christian's dad, but I'm going to treat him like my son. But it has nothing to do with it. So we are going to help raise him together, but I'm never going to take the spotlight away from you. And that was such a huge moment for this, because what you said, it changed everything for us. To now, I've had Christmases with them. I spent the night at their house. We've had Easters. It's one of the main reasons why Chrissy married me, is because it was amicable between both of us, and we can kind of walk in their house and share like we're brothers and sisters. And I think that's super important to say, which he's knowing that you guys worked it out, and Mary can be comfortable with your ex-wife, and I'm sure that you guys are 20 minutes apart here in the desert. But being able to show kids, like, listen, your mom and I didn't probably make the best decisions, kind of why we ended up here, and it happened. But now let's try to make sure that everyone's available, and then help you along the way by building foundations. Same thing with Brent, having conversations with lights. It's slowly building that foundation, not only for your spouses, okay, but now I got to build it for my kids. But going back to it's an example that we don't think it's a big deal, but it is an example that not only plays out for our kids, but other people are watching us. So, guys, if you're going through divorce, I'm not telling you, and it could be ugly, but figure it out and fix the problem, because your kids are watching, your friends are watching, and they need to know that there is the grass will eventually get green. And we can't stop. It's like, oh, I hate my ex, and I'm going to put it on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. I go, that stuff needs to stop, because it constantly causes division, and it's a bigger ripple effect than just you and your ex-wife. It goes on for generations and generations, and sooner or later it's got to stop. So I'm glad that you had that conversation, Brent, with you. I'm glad you had that conversation with your wife, because it took a lot of years of building that trust for her to be vulnerable enough to come with you. Ken, you have built this trust. You just you're going through a career change right now. I'm sure those conversations were not the fun with everything that's going on. Sold my house in Seattle. I moved down to the desert full time. And oh, by the way, I'm going to start a new career. Which is great. We could all do it. That's why we had to do it. But how were those conversations? Were they a lot easier than you expected? Were there some trials and tribulations that, hey, okay, maybe next time we do it this way?
I wouldn't say it was like really tense at all. I mean, I think it was, more for me about like taking a step back, and I've got a pretty extensive network of people that I've worked with over the last 25 or 30 years, and Brent and Blair, I'm sure you guys are in the same boat, and I've largely been tied to the same industry, working with the same people, and I love that aspect of my career, right? The fact that I've been able to build over time just a really strong network of people that I can continue to work with and work for, and be on teams with. And I guess what I was kind of feeling as I worked through just getting past the health scare that I had, and becoming a grandpa, was like, what do I want to be when I grow up, right? And
Yes.
at the time last spring, I was working for a company. I was just really not excited, right? I mean, there were people that I had worked with before and I enjoyed, but what we were doing wasn't enjoyable. And I don't know. I kind of just sat down and I said, why am I doing this, right? Like, I don't have to do this. I could take a little bit of time off, and I've had some success along the way. And I don't have, at this point in my career, I don't have to force myself to do something that I don't want to do. So, I really feel fortunate in that, my wife, has been so supportive, of what I'm trying to do, and just kind of figure things out. And, going from a conversation at the beginning of the summer, thinking that, I could go make sandwiches for people, or become a grade school gym teacher. Those, by the way, are my two dream jobs. If I could bring dodgeball back into public grade schools, and make sandwiches for people at lunch, I'd feel pretty fulfilled. But I think reality set in.
That's
and
awesome.
you take a little bit of time off, and I think one of the things that I've realized is, from a work standpoint, you get a lot out of work. On a, from an identity standpoint, and, just, for me, I'm a pretty competitive person, and, it's not really so much as you know, about the money. It's really more about like contributing, competing, being in a situation where, on a daily basis, you can make a difference in what you're doing. So, um, I think for me, I'm pretty close to going back. I've been having some conversations with people, and I've realized, like 54 is not the right age for me to retire. But God, it's been a great summer, summer and fall, and we've done some travel, and I just, it's been a luxury that most people don't have, right? I mean, I'm talking about like taking all this time to think through this stuff, and most people are just they got to show up at work in the morning, and they got to put food on the table, and believe me, I recognize that it's a luxury, but no, it's been awesome, highly recommended.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sandwiches and dodgeball. We could start a new business where Subway
I was
play
going to say
dodgeball
shirts
and go
and
get a
skins,
Subway,
but I don't
all
think
done
that's
by
very
Ken
popular.
McCumber. Shirts.
Yeah.
Well, it'd probably be too popular, unfortunately.
I'm offended. I am completely offended right now.
I've always said that again is I
There you
want to be the pizza dough cutter guy. Like I don't want to have the responsibility of making the pizza. I just want to sit back
Nice.
there and cut the dough
Very
and then
nice.
stack them up and then leave for the day.
Yeah. It's an easy job, right? So, guys, it's just I love how fluid this conversation is. We've probably been all over the board if you kind of listen to it, but realistically, if you go back and listen to this, these are just little stones to help you build foundation. Maybe you're going through the same thing. Maybe you're going through a career change, and if you are going through the career change, maybe we could go and use examples from Ken and Brent of how those conversations are with your spouse. Have you built the foundation with your spouse? Hey. And have enough trust to not only get support, or do you need to start building that foundation? You could be 30, you could be 40, you could be 50, or it could be 60, you could be 70. It doesn't matter where you are, but what is your foundation looking like for your spouse? What does your foundation look like for your kids? You were given a foundation, you built on it. How are you enhancing that foundation? And that's the topic of our topic today, is building on the foundations that we've been given, and making sure that we're taken care of. As we said many times before in these episodes, at the end of the day, it's really how we're going to start communicating. It's no longer, you can go ahead and stay on, hey, they're on the right, they're on the left. But realistically, if you looked at this panel and really got in deep, we had another hour or 2 hours to do a Joe Rogan episode, you would find out there's a lot of differences between Brent and I. There's a lot of differences between Ken and I, and all three of us. The bottom line is we learned how to communicate. Did it happen overnight? No. But we learned that, it's safe to say something. If something doesn't like it, let's keep talking about it. Instead of like, well, Ken has this type of belief and Brent has this belief. I'm not going to be in their tribe, which is a crock of ish at the end of the day. I'm not going to swear so we don't kicked off YouTube. But that's the problem that's missing. We forgot how to be men and surround and circle around each other and help each other out. So I hope that you guys go back and listen to this a couple of episodes. Women, I hope that you do the same. Our younger generation, which I mean, our 35 and under guys that listen to this too, is take some wisdom out of this. And if you know Ken, and if you know Brent, you know me, reach out to us and ask for wisdom. I have someone next door, just outside of our studio here, is 27 years old. Beyond grateful that God put me in his life. It's something that, I've taken stuff that I've learned through real estate. I'm trying to let that resonate through him, and he's going to take that. And I've had conversations with him lately. He's taken some of the knowledge he got from me, and he's letting that resonate through his kids. It's awesome, right? And it's just little gifts like that we don't see that have, and Brent and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago as well. Is your wisdom finite, like tomorrow, or is it infinite for eternal? And I think there's a lot of wisdom on here that you can do an infinite type of stuff, and those relationships are going to go far beyond this podcast. Brent has had built a great friendship with the people that we had on here a couple weeks ago with Caitlin in her wellness center. Now he's building that out to it. God put Ken back in my wife's and our lives. We're super grateful for that because we've had some great things. We have CGOF out here at Ironwood Country Club, which is a core group of friends. We're the younger guys, so we can actually have dinner at 8 o'clock and still be okay. But Brent knows I have dinner at 5.
4:30. 4:30.
So, but that's about it. So I'm going to start with you, Brent. Any final words from you, what we've talked about?
So I would tell you that my foundation with my wife started when we had a conversation about a prenup. And that is a very hard conversation because, typically people go to money and go to things, right? And I just told her, I said, I've done this in the past with no prenup and it failed. And I want to make sure that we have a contract in place. I wouldn't go into business with anybody without having a contract in place. This is lifelong. This is a lifelong business. And so why would we not memorialize our agreements while we're amicable instead of trying to argue them later? And so we set up a foundational document for not only our marriage, but our life and how we were going to raise the kids. And then if anything was to happen to either one of us and we would stray, then we had a rules of engagement in regards to maintaining a quality of life, not only for her, but for the kids and for me. And that's a big difference than most people. Most people, I'm going to pick on Blair, find a good looking gal and, marry her and have a kid with her and then figure out that you're just not compatible. Right. And so, and then you don't have an engagement letter in place. You wouldn't even take a job without an engagement letter, right, Ken? I mean, you're looking now for that whole new career, and you're probably like, let's get an engagement letter going, guys. If I'm going to do anything more than dodgeball and sandwiches, so, and so that foundation started a long time ago, and it does take a lot to build on that foundation. But I would tell you that it's not too late, even if you've been married for 20 years. Sit down and have those conversations. Sit down and make sure that you are being supported and that you are building a lifelong foundation going forward. I have friends that have been married for 30 years and now they're getting a divorce because the kids are gone. They don't have any grandkids yet. They just don't like each other, and they've tolerated each other for a number of years because they were passing like ships in the night, right? And now they have to be together every day and they don't like each other. And so build that foundation, figure that out, take the time, make sure it's a good fit. Even if you guys have been fitting together like puzzle pieces for the last 30 years, I would tell you, break that puzzle apart and try to fit those pieces together and build that foundation.
Dude, that's really good. I love that. Okay, Ken, you got the floor, brother. You've shared a lot of wisdom with us. Any final thoughts for you? From you, but for us, something to carry on that we can add to our foundation.
I would say one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about lately is just being deliberate, right, about what you're going to do. And, I think in the context of this discussion, since I have a little bit of time off, I'm getting in front of planning what my 2024 is going to look like. And probably like you guys, I have a framework of the way that I think about what I want to get done in, whatever time frame. So for me, this conversation has given me, some ideas about some stuff that I want to really lean in on next year. And they are foundation related, foundation for the relationship that I have with my family and friends. What am I going to need to do in 2024 to really kind of make that foundation stronger? What do I need to do professionally, to make that component of my life stronger? So you've definitely given me some stuff to think about. So yeah, it's been awesome.
Love it. Welcome to therapy, dude. It's really fun. You guys, there's so much. You guys have given me so much to think about as well, and I just really love this time that we got to spend together. And it's going to be really cool because not do we actually have this memorialized right now. We have it on. It's going to be on YouTube forever for as long as we keep it on there, which is typically forever. But I always wonder at the end of these episodes, and we're slowly growing on this, but we're growing, which is great. Is what does this look like in 5 to 10 years from now for the people that we've touched? What does it look like for Lincoln and Jude?
Yeah.
How does this conversation spend with this? As I said to one of our team members, agents, David Schreiner, is literally right next door right now. What does that do for not only him, but for his kids? What does it do for our wives? We talk a lot about that as now that we've had these different things, what I know that Ken's gone through and he shared with us today, what Brent has just had that type of conversation is how are we constantly making better? The whole premise of anybody that's watching this, I beg you to make some changes or not beg you, but encourage you to make the changes that maybe resonate with you a little bit, even if you're doing them. How are you doing them? So now we want your feedback from this because that's what this show is really about you. So hashtag how I'm making a difference, if you may, and let us know what you're doing in your life. Like, hey, I made this mistake here. Now I'm doing this part, or we got a divorce and this is how I communicate with our kids. And so we can stand on the same line, or I'm going through a career change. And this is the conversation I had with my spouse beforehand. And if you're not having those, reach out to us and let's talk it out to it. Brett and I are easy to find. Obviously, you can find us on YouTube. You can find me a couple different ways. You can kind of see Team Armstrong in the background. You can also look up blairforhome.com. Besides that, you can leave a comment below and we'll reach back out to you. And then, Brent, how do we reach out to you?
Linktree, Brent Wright. That's all my stuff is on Linktree.
Okay. So. And if anybody, I'll ask this to you, and I'm going to make it. I don't know how to say this to you. I'm just going to put you on the spot here a little bit. If someone wants to reach out to you, Mr. McCumber, do you have a place for them to reach out to? Like, hey, I really like what you said.
Ken.mccumber@comcast.net. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there you have it. Guys, I love this, man. Ken McCumber, thank you for being on this, a part of this. Thank you for being an old guy that still rocks. We got another one, and it gave us a lot of wisdom today. So, you guys, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for all your support. I hope everyone had a great holiday. We're running right into Christmas, and all of a sudden 2024 is. So start planning that. Start doing what Ken did. What does your 2024 look like? How are you going to become better? If Brent has one word I'm going to let, or saying that we're going to let him talk about. But keep pushing, pursuing excellence, keep becoming better. Brent, what do we always say?
Go make a damn difference.
Go make a damn difference, guys. All right, we're going to head out of here. We have a little Colt for you today. This is on behalf or on honor of Mr. McCumber. Guys, have a great day. Thanks for following us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Spotify channel. Sooner or later, we're going to be on Apple Music. We've got to figure that out before. But in the meantime, guys, stay safe. God bless. We love you. We'll talk to you later. Bye.